The Xbox Series X's 1TB internal SSD is really fast and can load up some games in a matter of seconds, but with 802GB actually free to use, you can fill it up quickly with the size of games today. And don't forget the Series S only comes with a 512GB drive. So what are some solutions for expanding your storage, and how well do they perform in comparison? I've got some answers for you. I covered this topic a bit in my full comprehensive Xbox Series X preview, but I think this is important to highlight on its own, and I have a few new details this time around. Here look, the 3 drives I've used: the 1TB Seagate SSD expansion card, a Samsung T5 external SSD, and a Western Digital Passport external hard drive. I'll start with the 1TB expansion card built specifically for the Series X and Series S. This is the drive that plugs directly into the console. You just insert it and it's immediately ready to use. It interfaces with the Xbox hardware and takes full advantage of that velocity architecture Microsoft has been flexing. In terms of speeds, it's technically the best solution and works identically to the internal SSD. There's virtually no difference in load times in the games we tested. However, it carries a hefty price tag at $220. Before we get into USB drives, an important thing to note is that they cannot play Series X or S specific games off of the drive. That's where this expansion card comes in clutch, especially once we start seeing more Series X and S only games. USB external drives can store those games, but they would have to be transferred to the internal drive or expansion card in order to be played. At least transfer speeds are fast, all things considered. These conditions can also apply to certain Xbox One games that have received Series X optimizations, as was the case for me with Gears 5 and Gears Tactics. Otherwise, you can play Xbox One and previous gen backwards compatible games straight off a USB drive using a USB 3.0 cable, and they'll still use the quick resume game swapping feature without a hitch. So onto an external SSD. As I mentioned earlier, I use the Samsung T5 with a USB-C to USB 3.1 cable. And in terms of moving data around and loading games, the results were very impressive. The Outer Worlds, which is a 45GB game, took about 2 minutes and 54 seconds to transfer onto the external SSD, and 2 minutes and 5 seconds to transfer back to the internal drive. When loading into the same save we used for our previous tests, it only took 13 seconds off the external SSD, which is very close to the internal drive that took 11 seconds to load. For Final Fantasy XV, an 84GB file, it took 5 minutes and 50 seconds to transfer onto the external SSD, and just 3 minutes and 56 seconds to move back to the internal storage. And the load time results were great as well, just taking 15 seconds compared to the 13 seconds of the internal drive. Both Final Fantasy XV and The Outer Worlds are Xbox One games without Series X optimizations, so the results between the internal and external SSDs are due to the fact that the games are simply working with the raw speeds of those drives. There are other external SSDs out there, but the Samsung T5 in particular usually goes for around $110 for 500GB and $140 for 1TB. Now, moving on to a traditional hard drive, as I said earlier, I use the Western Digital Passport with a USB 3.0 cable, and things start to slow down, but it's not all that bad. To transfer The Outer Worlds from internal storage onto the external hard drive, it took longer, about 7 minutes and 35 seconds, and transferring back to the internal drive took 7 minutes. However, in-game load times remain decent, taking 26 seconds to load up the same save we used previously. With Final Fantasy XV, the transfer speeds took longer as well, coming in at around 14 minutes and 24 seconds to move the game to the hard drive, and 12 minutes and 55 seconds to get back onto internal storage. Loading up save data remained reasonable though, taking 52 seconds for the same save file we used before. It's no surprise that a hard drive is going to be slower compared to an SSD, but these results aren't bad at all, and they're actually faster than current gen consoles too. The Outer Worlds took 43 seconds, and Final Fantasy XV took 1 minute and 11 seconds to load saves when using the Xbox One X. Considering you get more space for cheaper with a hard drive, this would be the cost-effective route for bulk storage or playing backwards compatible games if you don't mind the slower load times. A Western Digital Passport goes for just $80 for 2TB and $110 for a whopping 4TB. So, what's the best solution? Of course, it depends on what you want to get out of your storage drives. For backwards compatible games, an external SSD would be ideal since you still get quick load speeds, and transferring data is quite fast, which is ideal if you're frequently moving Series X specific games back and forth. If cheaper mass storage is more of a priority, an external hard drive is the way to go. Load times for back and pack games are still better than current gen systems, though you will miss out on those sweet SSD speeds. Transferring data takes considerably longer, but the importance between 6 minutes and 14 minutes to move an 85GB file, well, that's up to you. That 1TB Seagate expansion card sure is nice, and $220 is fair if compared to other NVMe SSDs for PC, but that's still pretty steep when looking at other solutions for the Series X and S. If you have any more questions, please drop them in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at Michael P. Hyam. Or if you want to see other games tested, let me know. And don't forget to check out my full Xbox Series X preview and our weekly show Gen Next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.